friends supporting friends in their mutual dream to travel. Attorney Elaine Lee and writer Evelyn White have been friends for 15 years, are as close as sisters. They have each traveled the world, from the umbrella factories of Thailand to a kabuki theater in Tokyo to a Nubian wedding in Egypt and to the hills of Rio, Brazil. They traveled separately but made a pact together to always support each other emotionally and financially in their pursuit of travel. Elaine and Evelyn, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
Why don't you start off by telling us about the pact?
Well, I was about to launch my first solo trip around the world, and it was two weeks before I was leaving, and I was a nervous wreck. And I called Evelyn and said, Evelyn, what am I going to do? What if it takes all my money and I come back, I'll be broke, and it's going to take me a long time to find a job? Evelyn said, don't worry, Elaine. She says, money is a replenishable resource. Time is not. You go on that trip, and I've got your back. I'll help you financially if you get stuck anywhere along the way.
What a good friend. I'm not telling you get stuck on that travel.
Well, it was not a risk for me. You know, Elaine is a very accomplished attorney, a hard worker. You know, I'd watched her over the years prepare for this trip, and I understood the anxiety. I mean, she was just doing something extraordinary, and it just sort of came naturally from me based on our friendship that I would support her, and I wanted her to, you know, go and see the world and have a good time and come back and tell me about it.
Now, did you ever need the money?
No, I never needed the money.
It's just the comfort of knowing.
Yeah, it makes all the difference in the world.
Elaine and Evelyn, both of you have met what you call sisters all over the world, and you made a special sister friend in Thailand?
Yes, I did. It was so amazing. Actually, it started in Egypt. I was asking around with people that I met, does anybody know anybody in Thailand? And this woman said, yes, I've got a name and a number for you. And a letter of introduction. And when I got there, I met this wonderful woman who took me into her home with she and her husband. And when she met me, she said, oh, you're a woman traveling alone? Oh, that can't be. I owe it to your mother to make a commitment to you that you will be safe and you will not be alone the entire time you're in Thailand.
Your mother?
Yeah.
You shouldn't know your mother.
Never met me, but just in the spirit of sisterhood.
All mothers deserve some kind of honor.
Yes, they do. And she took me into her home, and it turns out she was one of the wealthiest women in Thailand. And they had my own house, my own driver. I got a chance to stay in a network of her homes throughout Thailand. And it was just a magnificent cultural and class experience. Because I've never been with anyone who was that wealthy.
I have to say, traveling as a woman, you do have a lot of advantages like that. People tend to look after you.
True.
They do. And you, Evelyn, okay, you've met with groups of women wherever you travel. We have some pictures of you with a group of Japanese women. Mm-hmm. You met in Tokyo.
Correct.
And then you also have visited with senior citizens in Cuba.
Yes.
And you also met with workers at a community center in Brazil. Anything in common with all these people you're attracted to?
Well, I think what I found in my travels is that there's a great generosity of spirit, and there's sort of this proverb that has been affirmed over and over, and that is that the fragrance stays in the hand that extends the rose. And people I found are very, very, very willing to give of themselves. The women that I meet primarily through writing. I'm a writer. I hook up with other writers, political activists, and they're very, very willing because, as I said, the fragrance stays on their hand when they extend the rose, and they're very generous and kind.
It's a great thing.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, let's face it, it sounds great. You travel all over, but how in the world do you afford traveling all around the world?
Well, it's about making it a priority in your life. And for me, one example I did, after a trip that I had to Paris, I guess it was in maybe '89 or something, I was so moved at this party that I went to with this brother that I met who traveled extensively. He traveled for 2 months and he worked for 2 months, and I said, oh, I like that lifestyle. I want to see if I can do something like that. And I came back and I looked at my life and I said, there's this garage that I'm not using, this 2-car garage. And I actually converted it into a 1-bedroom apartment. And I said, all the money that comes from this unit, I'm going to put into my travel slush fund. And I did that. And so I was able to amass a little bit of money. I also went to a financial planner and really just charted a course for myself that I wanted to semi-retire at 40. And I followed all her instructions, and I managed to do it for 2 years.
One creative gal.
Yes, I have a love for travel, a commitment.
And very dedicated, as you can see. She takes it very seriously. And so when she was making the trip around the world, I knew how she operated, so it was not difficult for me to offer to assist her because she is a very, very, very dedicated person.
And because of your belief in each other and your common love of traveling, you both have contributed to a book that's called Go Girl, the Black Woman's Book of Travel and Adventure. Did I say that right? Go Girl?
Yeah, go.
That's what we got.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Tell us about the book.
Yes, it's actually an anthology of black women's travel writings. And it has stories in there from people like Maya Angelou and Alice Walker and Jill Nelson and Barbara Chase Ribot and Gwendolyn Brooks. And it's bracketed by my work in the beginning and the ending. I have a planning guide in there as well as a resource guide. So there's no excuse for women not to make their travel dreams come true. And I was really also blessed to have a story from Evelyn on one of her trips to Egypt.
And tell us about your trip to Egypt. I understand that you were just so inspired by the pyramids and saw them as a symbol.
Yeah, it was a childhood dream of mine to go to Egypt. When I was a small girl growing up in Gary, Indiana, I would see photographs of the pyramids, and so I managed to go, I think, in the late 1980s. And I think what it symbolized to me is not a fear of death. You know, the pyramids are tombs of Egyptian rulers, and they really saw death as this process that took them to a divine, reincarnation. And I think in this death-fearing culture in America, it was very moving to me to see these people who sort of said, oh, this is not so bad. We're going to build monuments to this new passage. And so I really like that.
And is there advice in here strictly for black women, real quickly?
Well, it's a compilation of black women's travel writings. And so I think that it really resonates with a lot of black women. Because before I put this book together, there had been nothing of its kind on black and travel, international travel.
You
so it encouraged me. Yes, we do.
We intend to.
All right, thanks so much for being with us. And once again, the book is called Go Girl, the Black Woman's Book of Travel and Adventure. All right.